Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for coming to We Are Waltham. I want to start by saying, yay, applause for everyone who came. I'm so grateful for so many people responding so well. I can't believe it's a sold-out show. I wish more of the seats were full, but I'm sure people will be trickling in. Excuse us if people are coming past you and finding their seats. So here we are. This is year 2 of We Are Waltham at the Charles River Museum of Industry. I want to start by saying thank you to my partner in crime, Bob Perry, the director of the museum, who made this happen. Yes, thank you very much. And he's pointing to me, and I don't know why I'm so nervous today. It seems like an accusation. It's you. It is. All the flaming to me. All right. The other people, just a quick round of thanks, because seriously, there's somebody coming from the back door. That's my friend Kristen, if we could open it. Not to put her on the spot or anything, but so another quick round of thanks, because without these people, none of this would be happening. Mike on the camera and sound, Catherine behind the scene, Joe in front, Gary, who's back at the camera, and all the other people that I am not mentioning, Rachel Parzavand, who was on the first show, alumni who's been helping me coach, Jack, who's alumni, who's helping me do something special that I'll tell you about later, and Eileen, and everybody else who's supporting us. So thank you so much for being here. The Waltham Cultural Council, once again, granted us a budget to try and get this show to you guys. It was actually, this year was a very tight, a difficult year to get grants, so we were not fully funded. So you are going to be seeing a raffle halfway through the show for these teeny tiny baby jade plants. There's going to be 3 of them, and I'm not going to give away the story behind them because one of our tellers is going to tell you, but you're going to get a chance to buy some tickets for a raffle. We will draw it at the end, and 3 lucky people get to take it home. And once you hear Dina's story, you will know why you really want to enter this raffle. Proceeds will help fund the show. That's the first part done. So the format for today, right? We have 6 tellers that I've got lined up for you. They're telling stories that are roughly 10 minutes long. They're true stories. They're not made-up stories. A lot of these people are first-time tellers, and it is not always easy to get up there and tell stories that are not necessarily easy to tell, that are very personal, where you have to bare your soul. So it takes a lot of courage, and I have a request to all of you today in the audience. Those of you who are repeat offenders know exactly what I'm going to be asking of you. But for the rest of us, we're here today to bear witness to the truths that people share with us. We're here to support them. We're here to listen to them. We're here to open our hearts, make this a safe space. It's not about ideology. We don't all have to think the same. It would be a terribly boring world if we were all the same. Come on. But we're here to hold each other up and to build community. So I know I've got all of your support. I have that much faith in humanity. You're all going to applaud. You're all going to make signs, laugh and sigh, and make the people feel like they're being heard. This is not easy what they're doing. This is not the moth. It is not intended to be the moth. It is meant to be a community storytelling show. So you're going to hear raw and real stories. These are not polished. I have worked with each teller to craft their story, to coach them, and to get them into some sort of shape. But it's their story, and some of them might forget what they're saying. Some of them might need to stop for a second, and I love that about this show. I'm so proud of the fact that it's real, and I expect all of you will support them in this journey. Last of all, you could be on a future show, so I always plug this. If you like what you're hearing, if you think you have a story to tell, if you know someone who's good at telling a story, if you've seen a story happen that you want on the stage, contact me. wearewaltham.com. We have cards out in front. Please contact us. I have a note here that says, we're not going to all be the same. You're going to see people who are just like you and people who are absolutely unlike you. If you smush it all together, then together, can you say it all together? We are Waltham. Thank you so much. That was very satisfying. And 1 second. And with that, our first teller of the night, let's give it up for Myriam, and is it Michel? Michel. Myriam Michel. As Myriam comes up, adjusts her mic and does her thing, getting ready, I'm going to do a little introduction. Myriam is Executive Director of Healthy Waltham, an organization dedicated to helping underserved and low-income families of Waltham. She is also, yes, thank you. She is also the founder of M&M Elite Events, a boutique event management company. She grew up in Waltham, loves books, plantains, clementines, and her family, though not in that order, right?
Not in that order.
Are you sure?
Not in that order.
All right. I don't believe you.
I'm Caribbean. I love plantains, so I can't,
Thank you. Take it away, Myriam.
All right. So I have always had a healthy appetite for books, as Chandreyee has said. And for me, in a house growing up with three other sisters, I'm the oldest of four, and being a daughter of immigrant parents, my house was always a multi-generation. The little joke at my house used to be, our home was a home for little wanderers, because we always had people at our house. And so for a person who was extrovert in the community, sometimes I want a little me time, and that's where I could dig myself into a book and escape and travel and be myself away from everybody else. And for me, growing up, my favorite books were a Shel Silverstein poetry book, Judy Blum, or those fantastic Babysitter Club series books. I read them all to like 130. And, for me, like I said, they were always a way for me to escape and travel and be somewhere else from my parents and my family. It was very noisy. And culture was a big thing in our family. So being a Haitian American, you were always Haitian first and American second. We ate the food, spoke the language, traveled when my parents could afford it, and I had the opportunity to know that education is always first. And so my parents were thrilled because I love to read, so that was number one. And they would hope one day that could foster going to be three things, because for success for a Haitian family or immigrant families, you had to be three things. Either you were a lawyer, or engineer, or a doctor, and that's it. So I was as obviously from my bio, I'm none of those. And so, in all reality, it kind of, if you knew my parents, you'd understand why that was very important to them. My father himself was quadrilingual. He spoke 4 languages. And I always know if I ever had children at the time, I would want to instill that sense of pride and culture and language from my generation. And so one of my favorite memories is the first day I got a library card. I remember that day clearly. For me, I went to school here in Waltham. I went to St. Jude's, and my dad picked me up, which is a very rare occasion because he worked constantly. He had to feed all these children. And so for me, this was a special one-on-one time that I had with my dad. And he picked me up, and he pulled into the back parking lot of the Waltham Public Library. I know everyone here is very familiar with that. And I ran to what I thought and looked like the children's room. And I started thumbing through the aisles. I picked up some mysteries. I picked up some chapter books, walking towards the front, and I plopped the books onto the librarian's desk. And she looked at me and said, well, do you know that you need a library card? And I was like, if it's a 5-year-old, you're trying to process what this means. And my dad fills it out. And I just remember having a sense of pride because it was something that was for me. It was this shiny blue card. If everyone is a patron, they remember what this card used to look like for the Waltham Library. And it was for me. It was mine. I didn't have to share it with siblings. If there's anybody who are elders, the eldest of the family, you know you also share everything. But this was mine. And I remember the librarian at the time taking a stamp and stamping each of the books, saying like, okay, you have 2 weeks to return this. Grab a bookmark, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. And I looked at her fervently. My dad's trying to take the books away from me, and I'm like, no, this is me. This is for me. I got this. And I was done in 3 days. And Dad came to me and said, "Are you sure you understood everything that you just read?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I was able to recount to him exactly everything that we read. But it was kind of cheating because I loved to read, so that was simple, number one. But number two, I'd get to spend another time with my dad. So that was very important to me. And so fast forward to today. I'm a mom of 3. I wanted to instill this love of reading from my family. And my eldest, Dario, we used to read several times together. One of our favorite books was Goodnight Moon, to the point that he would know the page. He would know the words before I turned the page. And my husband would always say the same thing. "Are you sure he understands what you're talking about and what you're reading?" I said, "Absolutely. I'm going to instill this. I'm going to instill the reading in him, and also culture, because language and culture is very important to us." I married a Haitian immigrant myself. And so I remember the first time I took Dario to the library. And just similarly, just picked up him for preschool. We went to the library. He went straight to the train table. And I started picking up books that are favorites of his, which at the time were Sandra Boynton books, C. Spot Run books, and a couple of truck books. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I came here for one important reason, the language. Because at that time, Haitian Creole cartoons for his age weren't a thing. And so the only way I can participate and show language skills is teaching him how to read it. So I marched to that section of language, and I looked. The Chinese section was on my left, the Spanish section was on my right, and then in this small little corner was Haitian Creole. There was 3 books. So you can just imagine my disappointment in seeing that, and I picked one up. It was tattered, soiled, and I just felt this sort of shame. And so, okay, I looked around, make sure Dario's not around me, and I walked up to the librarian at the time, and she's sitting at the desk, blonde hair, blue eyes, freckled, fair face. And, I wanted to check out these books. She's like, "How can I help you? Here's my books." And I give her this energy I'm going to give her now and said, "So you know that Waltham has a lot of Haitian American community here. Why is there only 3 books here in Haitian Creole? And you should change this, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da." And she looks at me very patiently and said, I work here, but you're a patron. If you want to see a change, it would come stronger coming from you than from me. And I'm looking at her like, why are you giving me homework to do? That's you. And, and I'm going off on my soapbox, and then she just looks at me very calmly and says, "M'kone, petits soins sont haïtiens too." And imagine my face, my jaw dropped. And I look at her, and obviously I shut up. And, and she says, "I understand. My daughter is Haitian too. I totally understand and feel you. I understand where you're coming from, but you have to say something as a patron. It's stronger coming from you." Wow. Today, that same woman is Molly McKenzie, for anybody who knows anyone at the library. And she, I have to say, is more Haitian than me. She has taught me so much about the Haitian culture. She sits on a board of a cultural art studio here in Cambridge. She has taught me a lot about the culture as well as in history. But I have to say, one of the first things she taught me that I forever keep true is that if you want to see the change, you have to be the change. So today, if you go to that Haitian section of the library, it's this wide. I also sit on the board of the Friends of the Library, and I continue to invite anyone here to be a part of that change. And if you want to be a part of that, you got to speak up.
Thank you so much, Myriam. That was awesome. And we're never going to assume that people don't speak Haitian Creole wherever you go. So our second teller of the night today is Mateo Cruz. Mateo, if you want to come up and make yourself comfortable. You can untether the mic if you'd like, or you can lower it. If you untether it, I'll ask you to put the stand thingy off the stage. Thank you. So I'm going to introduce Mateo as a Waltham transplant who spends his days typing on his computer at the Common Good Cafe on Moody Street. If you haven't been there yet, you should go. When he's not typing words, he's spending time with his incredible friends who are called the Poo Crew. That's another story on a future show, people. You need to come back for that one. And analyzing episodes of Survivor with his brilliant wife, Laura Geary Cruz. He loves sad music, movies, Prosecco, because of the sad music and sad movies, I think, and deep conversations, ideally, all at the same time. So Mateo's going to tell us the next story. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This is here, just a little safety. All right. Beautiful to see you tonight. Here's where I'd like to start. Raise your hand if you've ever been good friends with someone from Montana. Let's see a show of hands. Okay, good. Okay, those are my friends. They don't count. All right. Okay, more than I thought. But if your hand isn't raised, that's okay. Today is your day, because I'm from Montana. Now, I'm probably not what you would expect a Montanan to look like, and that's fair. I was adopted. But in my heart, what's that? Mic higher, okay. I don't. Or how about we'll see. Is this better? Yeah. Okay. I was adopted. All right. But in my heart, I'm a product of the Old West. So let me tell you 3 things about what it meant for me to be Montanan growing up. Number 1, I loved Jesus. Number 2, I loved my grandpa. And number 3, I absolutely despised Boston. I'm sorry, it's just how I was raised. In fact, when I was researching for this story, I typed in, do Montanans have an accent? And a Montanan wrote, Montanans say gonna instead of going to because we can't be bothered to add the ing. That would make us sound like we're from the East Coast. So I'm gonna tell you why we hated Boston so much, okay? First, the word is car. It ends with an R. Thank you. Second, the Celtics and Larry Bird in the 1980s. The worst, so arrogant. What, one title wasn't enough? Then there were the Catholics. My fundamentalist Christian mother would say, those Catholics, they're just so liberal. They think they can drink and swear and still go to church on Sundays. And truly, that's why I chose to go to a Catholic university for college, because I thought it was going to be a raucous party. But we reserved our real deep vitriol for those bougie New England academics with their fancy Ivy League degrees. To us, they symbolized the heart of elitism. And quite simply, they thought that they were better than us. Now, to be clear, no one I grew up with had ever visited Boston or known someone from Boston, but that didn't matter. When I was dating my wife and she innocently asked me, would you ever consider living in Boston? I was an unequivocal no. Not gonna do it. So imagine my surprise when I received my first big job offer in Boston. Why would the universe do this to me? This is the question I was pondering as I was driving up from New York City in full annoyance, I'll admit. It was a February in 2016, and it was bitter, icy cold, and these trees were barren and blowing in the wind as I was arriving into Waltham, and I thought, this doesn't look promising. However, as I exited the highway to Main Street, driving towards Moody, the city of Waltham appeared. And it didn't look spectacular, but there was something about crossing those railroad tracks by the Charles River that reminded me of living in Portland, Oregon in the mid-1990s, where I went to college. That was also a city with so much possibility ahead of it. And it was also the chapter in my life when I started my journey. When I was a sophomore in college, I came out to my mother, first as queer, and then as a transgender man. My mother, whom I never had a cross-word with, said to me, "There's only been 3 times in my life where my heart has been broken. When your father left me, when your grandpa died, and today." And she added, "I'm just glad your grandpa isn't here to see what you've become. He would have been devastated to know you." You see, even though by the time I was 3 years old, everyone knew I was a boy, her realization that she couldn't change that fact led her to strike this deep blow. I loved my grandpa. He was a man of few words, but moved with quiet strength and integrity. He was the person we called when we needed anything: to kill a spider in the garage, to bring materials over to rebuild an old fence, to put an abusive man in his place. He was our family's rock. And although he loved all of his grandchildren, we had a special bond. When I was 5 years old, my parents divorced, so he would come pick me up after school. And I would hop into his pickup truck, and the first thing he would say to me is, "Hey, did you learn anything today?" And I would recount all the things I learned that day on the drive back to the trailer court where he lived with my grandma. After a quick snack, a peanut butter sandwich and a Coke, he'd take me out back behind the trailers where we'd play baseball until the sun set. He taught me how to throw, how to catch, and how to bat. He even carved me my own wooden baseball bat and made me my own wooden baseball tee, so that the next year when I was old enough to play t-ball, I would be ready to outcompete the boys. You see, he didn't care that on paper I was a little girl. I certainly didn't look like one or act like one. I was always me, and he celebrated that every moment that he could. A few years later, when I was playing catcher, he never missed a game. He spent years behind the backstop tracking all my statistics and cheering me on. He would show up to these games in this big baseball hat with big buttons of me pinned all over to it. He was such a prominent presence in my life that when he died of a sudden heart attack when I was 15, I quit playing sports. Even though I was on track to get a college scholarship, I couldn't withstand the grief of being behind the plate without having him there. The last time he and I talked, it was a Sunday in December 1995. And the phone rang and my mom told me that it was for me. I don't think my grandpa had ever called me before. But I had won a state championship that weekend, and so I picked up the phone and he said, "I just wanted to call to make sure you knew how proud I was of you." He died a few days later. So when my mother tried to use him against me, I knew in my heart that she was wrong. Although she disowned me, her abandonment gave me freedom to start a new chapter in my life. One where I wasn't stuck to the rigid expectations of what I should be, but one where I could dream about what I could become. And soon after, that journey began, and I went places no one I knew had gone before. I graduated college. I moved east of the Mississippi to New York City. I got a master's degree, soon followed by a PhD from Columbia University, a school I didn't even know was an Ivy League school until after I applied. So I'm thinking about all of this as I'm driving towards my new destination, Bentley University. And as I turn onto Beaver Street, I can make out the Bentley University sign in the distance. And I'm driving towards it, the lights are green, and I can see the word Bentley in gold letters. And I remember in that moment what Bentley meant to me. The name Bentley is the name my grandpa gave his beloved dog, his pride and joy. This little grumpy, stubborn schnauzer with a big white scraggly beard. The same reason that I have a stubborn schnauzer of my own. Suddenly, Waltham didn't seem so gray. I realized I was coming full circle, coming back to a college environment in a place that reminded me of Portland, Oregon, with so much possibility ahead of it. Except this time, this wasn't going to be a painful chapter in my life. It was going to be one of purpose. It was going to be one where I finally was able to achieve what I set out all those years ago, to become a college professor so that I could work with students who were sophomores and juniors in college also finding themselves in the rubble. Someone who could give them hope, someone who could help them discover their path. I turned into the university and stopped the car at the bottom of the hill. And in that moment, the sunlight broke through the clouds, and Bentley, it seemed like it was glowing. And I could hear my grandpa's voice. I am so proud of you. That was 7 years ago. I'm now a tenure-track professor at Bentley University, where I teach the psychology of diversity, equity, inclusion, social justice, and change. And I have the opportunity to advise hundreds of the most incredible change makers the world has yet to see. And I still love Jesus, and I still love my grandpa. But I no longer despise Boston. I had come to the other side, now a New England bougie academic with an Ivy League degree who's even been known to rock a Celtics hat from time to time. Thank you.
I need to go take a walk or something after that one. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. Every time, I just feel really lucky. Thank you. All right. Our third teller is Dina. Dina, how do I pronounce your last name? Warchal. Warchal. Dina Warchal. Dina Warchal is going to set up, and I'm going to tell you that Dina is a lifelong Waltham resident from a multi-generational Waltham family. She loves music, but especially Aerosmith, who practiced here in the warehouse. She loves family and describes herself as an on-the-go person. I will add that Dina has demonstrated a green thumb that was not always green, but you'll have to listen to her story to find out more about that.
Hi, everyone. It's my first time storytelling. I'm a little nervous. I was born right up the road, Waltham Hospital, 1967, a long time ago. Shh, don't tell anybody. Family always meant a lot here in Waltham, especially on the south side of Waltham. We all gathered on the weekends and stuff, visiting grandparents, great-grandparents, and so forth. I spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house. They lived on Lowell Street in, some called it Dana Court. If you're from Waltham, you're gonna know what I mean. We called it Lowell Street Projects. And it was our own little community over there. Everybody was friendly, you knew your neighbors, everybody played. Spent a lot of time there with a wonderful set of grandparents, especially my grandfather. And my grandfather volunteered up at a place called Stigmatines. My grandparents had their anniversary up at Stigmatines. Stigmatines meant a lot if you made your communion, your confirmation here. You'd go out to the gift shop up there to get your pins, your veils, whatever you needed, because we all went to church on Sundays, whether you were good or bad. Well, my grandfather worked at Stigmatines. Weekly, he would come home with a box, and it would have English muffins, Kansas spaghetti, all sorts of like little food things. And he would bring it home, and we would make up bags, and we would visit other people, their neighbors, in our little community there, and give people food. We all helped each other out there. And Stigmatines was part of that helped out. And my grandfather was a lovely man. So moving forward, I work as in a place, like we buy storage units and stuff like that, house cleanouts and so forth. And we got the opportunity to go into Stigmatines. Let me go back 2 steps here. Stigmatines had closed because the city of Waltham was going to build the high school up there now. So Stigmatines had been closed for a while, and we got the opportunity to go in and sort of kind of treasure hunt. And I was thrilled at this because Stigmatines meant so much. So we got the opportunity, we won a bid, so we went there. And pulling up, my heart was racing. It was exciting because we knew what was in there. I mean, just it's memories, it's everything. So when we pull in, there's a gift shop to the left, and I hadn't been in that gift shop since I was a little kid. And remind you, this place had been closed for like a whole season. Through winter, it was barren. There's no water running there. It's a mess. But we walked into that, opened those doors to that gift shop, and if you had ever been in the gift shop at Stigmatines, it had beautiful woodwork. Just like stuff you would see on shows in Boston, just the color of it. There was stained glass windows there. They had the whole banister going right up the stair. It was just, it brings you back. It's a flood of memories, and it's warm memories. So we went in, and of course I'm rifling through everything. I'm trying to find any piece of paper, anything that had my grandfather's name on it. Of course, I didn't find it at the gift shop. But we found some statues and stuff, and then we loaded up, and then we went to go. There's 3 buildings on the property of Stigmatines. We have the gift shop, then you had where some of the priests stayed in like a main house, and then you had the big building, which was a big, huge brick building. So nothing was really in the second building, so we made our way up to the big brick building. And walking in, you could feel how closed down the building was. It was cold, there's no water, it's dirty, but there's chairs, there's beds, there's still crucifixes on the wall, there's Bibles, there's the little bells that you ring at church when they do the Eucharist. And I was like a fanatic. I was running through every room. Let me find something. There's file cabinets. I'm pulling out the file cabinet drawers, looking through records. It was like they packed up and left. I was in a place that I've never been. Like, I was excited, but I was sad at the same time. So anyways, I'm rifling through everything. We took some stuff out of there. We loaded up the truck. But in the main entrance of where Stigmatines is, when you would go there to visit, there was an office to the side, and there was plants out in the front of there because they had big windows. And I hadn't found anything, but something came over me. I just stared at these plants that didn't really survive through a winter there with no heat, no water, nobody to tend to them. And I saw these 3 plants. I didn't know what they were. They were sticks. But in each one of those plants, there was 1 leaf. They were brown, they were half shriveled, but each one of those plants somehow survived and had 1 leaf on each of it. Something came over me. They're going home with me. I'm going to save them. That's all I got of my grandfather. I'm going to save them. So I took these 3 plants home. I had no idea what they were. I brought them home. I took them out of this dried up, just potting soil that I don't even know what to even call it because it wasn't really potting soil by this point. I took them out. I went down to Home Depot. I went to go get some soil. I brought it back. I replanted them. And I put them out in my sunny window in my house where every morning it gets sun like 5 hours out of the day. And I would watch them. I watered them a little bit. I still didn't know what they were. But they were brown. They were just really, it didn't look like they were going to survive, but I was determined not, there was something in it. It was, those plants met my grandfather. I'm gonna save them because that's all I got left of stigmatines because the buildings got leveled. So as I watched every day, week after week, the brown on the stems started going from like a dead gray brown to like, it's a little brown now. It's not a gray brown, it's a brown. But little did I know, when I had replanted those 3 together, I had nicked one of the stems of those plants. And wouldn't you know, I woke up one day and there was a green bud coming out of where I nicked the plant. And it was like, oh yeah, Grandpa's here, he's saving it. I got this, I got this. So each week, each month that went by, it grew, it turned brown, it started growing leaves on it, it budded out, and I found it was a jade plant. So now all of a sudden I wake up one day and there's mold all over in the dirt. And these kind of weird mold things looked, I can't even say the word. They looked like, I'm not going to say the word. It's some weird kind of fungus that comes out. So I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Blah, 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 blah. So I ran to Home Depot. I'm like, what do I do? My plant's got a fungus. I got to save it. I had taken a picture of it, you know. And they said, oh, you got to get the special potting plant stuff. So I'm like, okay, expensive, but I'm going to save my plant because it's my grandfather. It's now turned into my grandfather. So I go home. Now, by now, my jade plant was like, when I took it home, the stems were like this. My jade plant is now this high from the ground. It's got buds. So I take it all out. I repot it. Everything turns out the fungus is gone. I saved it again. So it keeps on growing and growing and growing. And then one morning I get up, and there's white flowers on it. It was like, I didn't even know what to think. It was like a miracle. I was probably jumping through my house screaming. I probably bothered the neighbors. But the jade plant had flowered, so I'm Googling flowers on a jade plant. What's going on? So that's like kind of lucky because it really doesn't happen that often. So now I'm on stigmatines is gone. They're building the high school. There's all sorts of controversy about it. And then I'm like, how can we get stigmatine sort of back to the high school? Because the school system here, too, reminds me a lot of my family. Not only do I have a plant that sort of turned into my grandfather, but my uncle was a teacher here at the Waltham school systems for over 30 years. So now it's sort of like, all right, I got my grandfather, my uncle, this plant needs to go to the high school when it's built. So I did a post on Facebook, like, who can I contact? Because I want to get this plant to the high school when it's built. Well, through the grace of God, through Facebook, I get contacted by the principal. So now I'm all excited. She's like, oh yeah, we'll take the jade plant. I said, I have it here at my house. When the high school's done, I'll deliver it to you. A week and a half, 2 weeks later, the principal resigned. So now I'm back to square one. So that's okay. It's gone from a dead plant to flowering to saving it to being my grandfather to I got to get it back to stigmatines. So I'm here tonight because I want to get the word out. I want to get that plant back up to stigmatines. If anyone wants to come with me in a pickup truck dressed as a ninja. The minute that high school opens up, it's going in the hallway there. I think that's where it needs to be. That's my story.
So Dina's going to be telling you about this model of car because this happens to be a baby jade, right, Dina?
Off the mother plant.
Off the mother plant.
So I brought 3 clippings. They're all set. Well, we're going to have a raffle here. You can buy a ticket. We're going to raffle off. I brought 3 clippings from the jade plant. I cut them in the right position where they need to be cut in order to transplant them. They have to be out of the soil for 1 week. They've already been out for 4 days. So you get 3 more days before you can plant it in soil. And there's instructions right here. So if anyone wants a pot of stigmatines and you want to help everything that goes on here and sponsor it, you are more than welcome to buy a raffle ticket. They have them.
Thank
Chandreyee
you,
can tell
Dina.
you.
Yeah, I'll hold on to that. So actually, she said everything that I was going to say, which was awesome because this is all Dina. So I have 2 friends who are going to be circulating. We're going to do about 3 friends, Brian, Jack, and Eileen, and Dennis. We have 4 friends. They're going to be circulating for about 5 minutes. I would say this is a bathroom break, but we're really scared we don't get people back. So if you've got to go to the bathroom, sneak out, run. And please enter your names in a raffle. It's $1 per ticket or $5 for 8 tickets. We will do a drawing at the end. We're going to do 3 drawings at the end. And you each get to have a little part of Waltham history. And I'm so sorry, but Dina, your grandpa's going to be everywhere. All right, so TikTok, 5 minutes. Hello, hello, hello. Has everyone had a chance to think about buying a raffle ticket? I'm not saying you have to, but you know, maybe you do. Brian's over there. The swimsuit model? Okay. Well, if you do decide, there's still, we're going to do the drawing at the end. There's 3 little baby jades, little pieces of Dina's family history that'll go home with you. But we're going to move on to our next teller, who is Rico Brown. Let's give Rico a hand as he comes up here and finds his place. You want to adjust you want to take the mic out. And then if you want to put the stand down over here, that'd be great. Rico grew up in Cambridge, but liked hanging out in Waltham so much that 10 years ago he moved here. Right, Rico? He loves classic cars, like he really, really loves them. What was the color of that car you had, Rico? Did you say?
Willow green.
Willow green. I mean, what a beautiful description of even the color. He also has a passion for shaping young minds and teaching and for helping the community. So it's no surprise then that many of you who are from Waltham probably know Rico by sight. You can always see him working tirelessly for the Healthy Waltham food pantries. He's there, come rain, come shine, throughout the year. And you're going to hear a story just about this. Take it away, Rico. Do you want to take it out and keep it with you?
No.
All right, then just raise it a little bit more so it's right next to your mouth. There you go. All right.
Hi. It started earlier this year, March. I want to say like March 1st. I was going to work. I work at Healthy Waltham. We're known for we're a nonprofit trying to stop food scarcity in our community, and we're known for food pantry days, the first and first and last Thursdays of every month, so like twice a month. We do other stuff also. What is a food pantry? Food pantry is like a bunch of food set up on a table. And we all label the tables with the food, and we have a volunteer behind the table with supplies of the food that we're passing out, and they try to push it on the tables. And we have our guests, where a bunch of people that need the food, like line up in order and try to get their food, and one by one, and go to each table and pick and choose what food they want, and then they can go home. We work out of the old Fitch School. It's on over there by Cherry Street and Ash. We work out of the gymnasium part. The gymnasium part's on the Ash Street side, and the gymnasium has high ceilings. And they got basketball court, and they got ropes hanging. I guess they used to do rock climbing or rope climbing. And the floor's kind of messed up, but it's a place that Healthy Waltham calls like home. And we have a lot of food over there. Try to, the non-perishable items, so like canned goods and oatmeal and cereal. And then like, we set up outside too, and that's more fresh items like meat, eggs, and bread. And they, we set up tables outside too and on the inside. But I was setting up on the inside the day before the pantry, because that's what I do. And I set up the tables and started labeling them. You could put like oatmeal on this one, Girl Scout cookies on this one, and whatever. And you could put some rice on this table. So I was getting ready, moving some pallets around 10 a.m. I hear the front doors open from the gymnasium, and bang, they just open, and two guys walk in. I didn't know who they were, but they kept walking towards me. They got like 5 feet in front of me, but I noticed one of them had a police uniform. The other one was plain clothes. The one in uniform I seen the day before this happened. He seen me. I work there. I donate food. I give people food. I'm accepting donations. And they get right 5 feet in front of me and start the questions. Who are you? What are you? What's your name? Where you from? You ever been arrested? You know, there's a lot of break-ins in this area. I couldn't answer nothing, because they were kept coming at me with the questions. And this went on for like 10, 20 minutes. Couldn't move. I had to stand there against my will and just listen to this. I decided to wanted to make a phone call at the moment, because call my director, see if she could explain this whole situation that we have with the city and the organization, Healthy Waltham, because they ain't listening to me. I'm asking for their badge numbers. I'm asking for their names. They don't care. And then I know that you can't move too quickly in front of the police, pulling something out of your pocket, because they're gonna think it's a gun. And I'm not going that direction. So I was swift, quick, and pull out my phone from my pocket, because they were talking amongst themselves and they didn't notice. So I pulled it out and called DiMaggio, and asked her if she could talk to them, get me out of this situation. Trying to arrest me or something? Get me out of the situation. So she got on the phone with them. I told the cop, don't worry, she's white. Talk to her. Get on the phone. Within seconds, these police officers, both of them, walk away and leave the building, leave the gym, and act like nothing happened. At this point, I'm done. I'm done. I want to go home. I'm not feeling too good. I feel like my pride got snatched out of my chest. I feel devastated. And I'm walking home. I'm done. I'm going home. I get home, and I'm thinking of something to do about this, because I'm not trying to get used to this. So I wrote up an incident report on what happened, details, timing, everything, and told them what happened, wrote what happened, and gave it to my job. Gave one to shared it with the Waltham Community Leadership Group. I think the mayor got a copy. The police somehow got a copy. City council got a copy. And weeks went by. And at the end of the month, I got a letter. Michel got a letter, Healthy Waltham, stating that it was all part of procedure. It was practice. It was all part of training. The police in uniform, just coming out of the academy, was being trained by the guy in plain clothes, and that's what they were doing, and that's what the letter stated. This ain't my first brush with the law, and it probably won't be my last. But I suggest that you write a incident report and show it to other people, politicians, your community, and don't let this injustice with the police just slide or just let it go. Proud of where I work at. I'm proud of what I do. Work at Healthy Waltham, and I'm trying to recruit or produce the next Rico for Healthy Waltham. Thank you. Bye.
Hey everybody, my name is Rachel, and I was a teller in one of the previous shows, and now I've caught the bug, and I'm learning how to coach other storytellers from our fearless leader, Chandreyee. And Chandreyee is a writer of fiction, teller of stories, and the architect of this really special event. She works for the DCR making maps and playing with data, tries not to embarrass her 16-year-old son, and tells stories that creates connections in her community. We are really excited to hear her story.
Is this on already? Sorry. Yeah, so we had a teller drop out at the last second, and I'm sorry you have to see my face any more than you already do, but our son was about 4 years old when we decided to put a play fort into our backyard. You know, one of those things that's got a sandbox on the bottom and these stairs that go up to this little house with a slanted tiled roof. We figured it would be a good way for him to expend his boundless, endless energy, also to exercise his imagination, which was so big that our house couldn't hold it almost. I mean, you'd walk into the living room and the couch would be a spaceship. You'd walk into the dining room and that would be a fort. It was awful. It was just, kid, go outside, take it outside. The whole yard is your oyster. So my husband and I scoped out this really nice fort. And we knew the perfect place to put it. It would go right in the backyard underneath this whole set of towering Norway maples in our house. But there was a problem. Right where it would go, the only place it could go that had enough space was this boulder. And it wasn't just a lump of gray rock sitting there innocuously. No. My life was not going to be that easy. It had this very quirky surface that was a lattice of holes, but the holes were really deep, but they were perfect squares. I mean right angles, right? Like a little grid of squares. Right angle, right angle, right angle. And my mind instantly flashed back to the beginning of Waltham. Milltown, right? Machining, tools, look around you. We're where it all began. And so we just been in Waltham about 2 years then. And I was like, oh my God, we have historical artifacts in our background. This is archaeology. And so I'm taking like 10 pictures from every angle of this stupid rock, and I sent it to my friend Ellen, who's the state archaeologist. I work for the state. And I pretty much couldn't sleep that night. I was convinced we had history in our backyard, and we'd be talking to the feds or something. So I wake up the next morning, and the coffee's still burbling. I haven't even opened my eyes properly, but I'm checking my email, and sitting right at the top of my inbox is an email from Ellen, and I can even read in the preview. It goes, "Oh, hon." Oh, this is not going to be good. "Oh, hon, it's just New England granite. This is how it weathers." Oh. My shoulders dropped 3 inches, and the coffee tasted so bitter that day. But as I had a couple of glugs and as I started to wake up, it suddenly hit me that I was crying. And I was like, why am I crying? And then I realized. And it's because, well, see, by the age of 14, I had lived in 5 different cities in 4 different countries. And I'd never had any constancy in my life. Nothing was certain except for my grandparents in India, whom we visited once a year on vacations. And when we moved to Waltham, when our son was 2, we did it to find him a community to grow up, because our family's in India. We're from India. A neighborhood that would watch him grow up, where he would grow up and become responsible and give back. Neighbors who would watch him get taller. A sense of belonging, of being part of a fabric, not just taking, of giving back. And as more of the bitter coffee went down and I wiped away my tears, I realized that he wasn't the only one that I was looking for this. I think I was looking for it for myself too. And so, anyway, I guess we could put the damn fort in. Sorry, pardon my language. But we moved the stupid boulder out of the way, and so it must have been a few days later that I'm standing by our fence between us and the next door neighbor, Michel. Is Michel here today? She is. No. And I'm telling Michel about this, and I'm like, yeah, the boulder. And she's like, oh yeah, you mean the kitchen? I'm like, no, hun, the boulder. See that stupid rock over there? We're gonna have to move it. And she's like, no, Chandreyee, it's the kitchen. And Michel goes on to tell me, she was born and brought up in the house next to ours. When she was a little girl, she would come over into our yard, and the little girl who lived there, because our house had been in the same family for 50 years before us. We live in the Malone house. Some of you will know which home that is, Granny Malone's house. She and the little girl used to play with that boulder, and those deep rectangular holes would get filled with water and mud and leaves, and they would cook. They would pretend cook just the way my little boy would be pretend cooking everywhere, including my shoe one time. And as Michelle's describing this to me, something magical happens, and that stupid lump of rock transforms again into what I always knew it was. I don't care what the archaeologist says, Ellen. And the fort went in. It was so tall, it was surrounded by the leaves, and our son used to call it the tree house because it felt like it was up in the tree. It's been years since he's been up in it. In fact, some of the roof slats have fallen in. There's lichen growing all the way up the stairs. And it's on the to-do list to clean it up, but we never get around to it. And I'm kind of happy, because sitting right next to it at its feet is that boulder that we moved over a few feet. That's also weathered and worn. And I'm hoping that one day when we're long gone and somebody else is living in our home, they can have that little bit of Waltham history too, just like we got ours. Thank you. Hey, long time no see. Our sixth teller is Alicia Hutton. Everyone, big round of applause for Alicia. She's going to round out our night. Alicia and her husband, Miles, have 2 daughters, one in McDevitt Middle School and another at Waltham High School. If I really wanted to embarrass them, I would point, but I'm going to be nice because I like them. They have been proud residents of the South Side since 2005. Alicia loves pickleball, especially the courts at Graverson Field. She loves cats, writing, cooking, but not baking, and wait for it, true crime shows, not committing the truth. But I'll let you find out more about that in a minute. Alicia, take it away.
Thanks. Excuse me. So I was a true crime junkie before it was cool. This was late 80s. I was a teen, and the Unabomber was all around, the preppy murderer, and Charles Stewart right here on the Tobin Bridge, for those of you who may remember. So I grew up on the Cape. I was a Cape Cod girl, and this stuff really excited me because the most exciting thing that happened in our neighborhood was that the local Christmas tree shop caught on fire. So fast forward, I'm in college. It's the mid-90s. I'm in Washington, D.C., which at the time was affectionately known as the murder capital of the country. And I was majoring in criminal justice. So a professor of mine suggested I get an internship at the local public defender's office. And for those of you who might not know, public defenders are lawyers who represent people in court who can't afford a lawyer. So when you're watching Law & Order and the detective says, you have the right to remain silent and you have the right to an attorney, if you can't afford one, one will be assigned to you. That's who I was working for. So I go in and the lawyer hands me my first case, and I open the file, and I'm looking at reading police reports. I'm looking at crime scene sketches and some crime scene photos. And I start to read the transcript of a 911 call. And my stomach sort of drops because I realize it's a case I've been hearing about on the news. And it's a terrible, terrible case of a woman who called the emergency line while she was being stabbed to death by her husband. And the hobby of mine was just becoming a little too real. So I was also like, what's the job here? He's obviously very guilty. What do I have to do? So the lawyer says to me, our goal right now is to just get him out on bail so he can wrap up some affairs before he goes to prison for a very long time. And I'm thinking, murderers have affairs to wrap up? But anyway, I do what I'm told, and she tells me to go talk to his mother. And it's cold, it's December, I ride the train out to southeast DC. It's not a great neighborhood. And I'm walking up to her house, and my throat is all dry, and my heart's all beating, and I'm thinking, oh my God, there's like a real person is gonna answer this door. And sure enough, she opens the door, and she invites me in, and she's a lovely woman, very soft-spoken, and my eyes immediately fall on her Christmas tree. And it has these big colored lights, which are the kind that my family put on our Christmas tree growing up. And it has these all sort of mismatched ornaments, which is exactly what our family had when we were growing up. And I'm like, murderers have cool Christmas trees. So, so she invites me to sit down on her well-worn couch, and she brings me this teacup of tea that she got from this china cabinet, and I'm praying she doesn't hear it rattling in my hand because I'm nervous. But she sits down next to me, and she helps me get to know her son. And she says he's soft-spoken, just like she is. He's a very hard worker, and he's struggled with a learning disability all through school. His father died violently, and just recently his crack and PCP habit had gone through the roof, which I think is partially what contributed to the horrible incident. So then we sort of turn our attention to the business affairs that I'm there for. And she's telling me that he has a little money in the bank, that he needs to pay off some bills, move out, tell the landlord, and now she's crying. And she's crying for her son, and she's crying for his wife, and she's crying for their family. And I just listen, and she talks until dark, and I'm getting ready to go, and walking towards the door, and I'm wiped out. And all I can think about is walking to that train in the dark, and I'm going to the door, and I open it up, and I'm like ready to get outside. And she says, "You know who you should talk to next? You should talk to his sister-in-law." I'm like, she talking to me? I'm supposed to talk to the victim's sister? It's like my first day on the job, but okay. So a couple days later, I go to the sister's house, and my heart's beating, but I'm naive enough to think that I'm prepared. So she opens the door and invites me in, and it's a totally different experience. This time my eyes fall on her counter, and there's a crock pot, and it has some roaches crawling on it, and I'm hoping we don't sit down on the couch because of bed bugs. And she's in high gear. She's angry, and she's grieving, and she's yelling. And I realize I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm just going to listen and bear witness to her pain and learn. So she tells me all about her wonderful sister, how much in disbelief and horror they are that she's gone. And she starts to turn the conversation towards the man who brutally murdered her sister. And I'm expecting like white hot rage, and that's it. And I do get some of that, but there's glimpses of compassion when she talks about him and the disbelief. And she tells me that he was a hard worker. He was working 2 jobs to save up for them to buy a house, and he was the fun uncle. And my head does that thing again. I'm like, murderers are the fun uncles. But I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to learn. And a couple days later, I'm back in my dorm room. It's quiet. My roommate's asleep. I've written the reports to wrap things up. And it's sinking in that the words I used to read in black and white in the newspapers and the magazines are just not life. Life is nuanced, and tragedy and family and experiences are all shades of gray and nuanced. And here I am, 25 years later. I'm still an investigator at a public defender's office here in Massachusetts, and I still have a lot to learn. Thanks.
And that was our last teller. Thank you so much, Alicia. But we're not done with you yet. I have to say a few thanks. In the meantime, can my raffle friends please set me up for how I do this? Jack, Eileen, what am I doing? And one plant is here. We need to round up the other 2. Dina, would you mind getting them? So I'm going to do quick thank yous. In the meantime, thank you so much, Eileen, who has been helping with everything, and Jack and Brian and Dennis, thank you so much. Our thanks this evening, thanks to you all for bearing witness, for being a supportive, empathetic, really fun audience. Thank you so much. A lot of our tellers were first-time tellers, and I could tell they were feeling so good about telling. Thank you to the Charles River Museum, the alumni, the tellers. A couple of announcements. Please follow our website, wearewaltham.com, to see when the next show is. In fact, I'll tell you when it is. It's on September 22nd. So block it off on your calendars right now. If you have a story idea for that show, contact me through the website. It might be a young adult only show. I'm not sure yet. So if you know young adults, it would be lovely to get their perspective. So hook me up. Another announcement. We're going to have what we have called a mini We Are Waltham show. So you don't even have to wait as long as September to get a tiny preview of the Waltham We Are Waltham show at the Common Good Cafe on Moody Street on May 12th on a Friday night. Drew, you want to stand up and say hi? Drew's one of the owners of the cafe, and so We Are Waltham is teaming up with Common Good, and we're going to have an evening where alumni tell very short stories, and the public gets a chance to put in their micro stories, and I will draw slips, and I'm going to read out some of them. There's going to be coffee, dessert, mocktails, and a really nice, cozy evening. Tickets are already on sale, so please visit the website, wearewaltham.com. There's a page for mini We Are Waltham. Go ahead and check it out. We have a website where there is a form that you can fill out if you have a story idea, or if you know someone who should be on the show, or if you know of a story that you think would be a good fit on this show. The show is all about community, and I have this, I'm stalkerish. I will find people on Facebook groups. Yeah, look at them saying yes. I'll find you and I'll say, that was interesting. Come and tell me the story behind it. And this is what happens. So if you don't want to meet a sticky end like this, don't make me come after you. Please come to me. Yeah, and with that, I think we're just about done. Thank you for hearing me tell. I didn't want to tell, but we had a spot, and rather than run 5 tellers, I said, what the heck, I might as well. And are we ready for the drawing? Do we have 3 plants here, Dina? Okay, drum roll. All right, the first one, I read this number over here, right? 573221, the white BMW with the lights on. 573221. Who has that? Teresa! Oh my goodness, it was worth it. Do you want to come up and get it? And actually, Teresa, may I just introduce you, please? Teresa is our celebrity guest today. You might have seen her on TV because Teresa is one of the hosts of the national show Stories from the Stage. Let's give a hand to Teresa. We have celebrity here. I swear I didn't game this. And I want a picture with you later. With this, yeah. Okay, the next winner, 573210. 573210. Yay! Is somebody taking pictures of these? No, we're good. Last, is it going to be you? Is it going to be you? Is it going to be me? Oh, we need a picture of this lady holding like a 5-mile-long CVS receipt strip of raffle tickets. All right. I really hope it's you. 573012. 573012. Oh, somebody lost it. 573012. Is that you, Denise? Yeah. If we could have the 3 baby, I'll go find you, and if we could get pictures, that would be awesome. Or I'll just take a picture of this one. That would be good. And with that, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for coming. Please come back in September. Come in May, in a couple of weeks. We've got some great stories there for you. Good night. Stay well.